Hi, I'm Miriam Percival, the editor-in-chief of The Mercury.
And I'm Ariana Haddon, the managing editor.
We are here today to speak with the student government presidential and vice presidential candidates on the Catalyze ticket.
Hi, I'm Eric Chen, running for student government president.
And I'm Carla Ramazan, and I'm running for student government vice president.
Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Just to go ahead and jump into the first question, what motivated you to run for president and vice president?
Yeah, so I'm a sophomore actuarial science student that has been serving in student government as the communications chair for the past year. One of the things that really motivated me to run for president was just the opportunity to have a unique connection with admin, getting to meet with administrators like Dr. Jean Fitch on a monthly basis and having that connection with them, and getting to see kind of the action that's happening in the rest of campus, as well as having the opportunity to kind of expand past the purview of just one committee. I think as a senator, you're a little bit limited to kind of one realm, if that makes sense. As the president, you really get the opportunity to have hands in kind of all different parts of campus, all different initiatives, and you have the opportunity to really drive the overall direction of the student body as a whole.
So I'm a freshman, and the first thing I did when I came to campus is I looked up student government online because I knew that that's where I wanted to be. I had heard a lot of things about how through student government at UT Dallas, it's a lot easier to create change because we are a relatively new campus and things aren't as well established as they are at older campuses. So I was super excited for that, and I knew I wanted to serve on student government. And after a year of being on student government, I believe that I have the energy, perseverance, and creativity needed to represent the student body as vice president. I have so many ideas for projects, and I believe that I am involved in many areas on campus that I can relay, what I'm hearing from people in like multicultural organizations, from people in Greek life, and just everywhere on campus as to what they want to see in student government, and then to implement that through projects.
Absolutely. And can you also talk about your experience with student government and how you will use that in this position?
For sure, yeah. Like I said before, I served as the chair of the communications committee for the last year. I think one of the really cool things that you get to see as a member of our executive council is just the interaction between our president and vice presidential members and the rest of the Senate body, seeing how they interact with the rest of EC, and seeing how the dynamic between them and our advisor Brianna Lemos kind of plays out. As an EC member, you get to see kind of the reports from the rest of the executive council before they're brought to the floor, and really play an active role in that feedback process and that iterative process of creating those ideas and seeing how those ideas become a reality internally. And so I think that's been a huge advantage for me of serving on the executive council in the last year. Having those connections and seeing how it works, I think that it really helped me develop a vision for what I want to see in student government next year, and how we want to implement those projects moving forward.
So this year I served on Student Government Student Affairs Committee, and through Student Affairs I worked on a variety of projects. The first project that I worked on was at the Counseling Center. I then worked on a project with the Comic Card Office. I then worked on a project with dining services, and now I'm working with housing on a project. So I believe that I've worked with so many different departments on campus and talked to a variety of people in the administration that I have connections now, and as vice president I could further solidify those connections and use them in ways to implement even larger projects in the future.
Yes. And so you also mentioned before that your ticket name is Catalyze. Can you speak a little bit more about that and what the platform is that you're running on?
Yeah, so the name Catalyze kind of came from our vision to really start a reaction on this campus. What we wanted to do was take our experience and some of the ideas we had, implement those in a unique way to create something that was completely unique and totally new with student government. I think the student body really wants people in office that can institute real change. And I think that Catalyze was something that really that meant to play off on those requests of the student body. And we also felt like Catalyze kind of fit into the unique intellectual culture here at UTD. We really pride ourselves in being a STEAM university that promotes a lot of innovation in the STEM fields as well as arts fields, and we felt like Catalyze really embodied that vision.
Right now, our platform is focused on three things. The first is spirit, the second is community support, and the last is sustainability. So the way we came about with these is we kind of brainstormed a lot of large-scale project ideas, and then we looked at that list and we were like, okay, what are like the overarching themes of these projects? And we came up with these three. So with spirit, for example, we have ideas about having more beautification initiatives on campus and having more common spaces on campus. Right now we have the plinth, and that's great. A lot of people host events there, like philanthropy events. They do various boothing activities at the plinth. But since we are a growing university, I think it's important that we have more established common areas on campus, and that would be a really great way to increase spirit. The second thing about community support kind of has to do with making sure that everyone has access to adequate resources for whatever needs they may have. So we have quite a few ideas about wellness and how we can improve wellness overall on campus, and more ideas about funding. For example, we have this idea of kind of establishing a fund that graduate students may apply for in order to kind of offset the financial stress of attending professional conferences nationwide. And that kind of plays into the idea of making sure that everyone in this community has equal access to resources so that everyone can do what they want to do. And lastly, with sustainability, that's kind of built on the idea of that we are a very rapidly growing school, and we want to make sure that that growth is sustainable. So we have a lot of green initiatives and a lot of plans to make sure that all our growth in the future is eco-friendly.
Definitely. So what are some specific initiatives that you want to spearhead if you are elected?
Eric, would you like to talk about yours first?
Yeah, sure. Two projects that I'm really excited about fall under our sustainability initiatives, one of which we are calling the Freshman Bike Project. We wanted to essentially promote, we wanted to encourage incoming freshmen or other incoming first-year students to leave their cars at home by giving 100 lucky freshmen the opportunity to win a bike helmet, and a bike lock. We felt like this was a really sustainable and green project that was fairly implementable. We wanted to partner with possibly the Richardson Bike Mart and other local businesses or organizations on campus that would want to partner with us on that initiative to promote those green and sustainable ideas on campus. Another sustainable project that I wanted to work on was the EcoCoin project. This was kind of repurposed from an initiative at UT Austin, where essentially you could purchase an EcoCoin for a flat rate at the beginning of each semester that would give you access to those reusable boxes that we already have in the dining hall, but would be expanded to other auxiliary services and dining services across campus. This is just to promote the use of reusable materials, and could be expanded to items such as reusable bags or reusable water bottles.
So first, to speak on the idea of beautification initiatives, the first part of that would be having more murals on campus. I think that there is a lot of potential for growth when it comes to spirit if we just have more paintings, more murals, more student art initiatives, and there are a lot of areas on campus where those definitely could take place. The second part of the beautification initiative would be to have more flowers planted on campus. A lot of universities throughout the nation have their letters written out in flowers, so I think it'd be really cool if we found orange and green flowers and spelled out UTD somewhere on a grass field with those flowers. To speak a bit on the Common Spaces initiative, so as I mentioned, we have the plinth right now, and that's great, but I think it's important that we have more common spaces. And I was doing a bit of research on this, and I found that a lot of universities throughout the nation have recently been buying tents that can fit about 40 people, and allowing organizations to kind of rent these tents and host their philanthropy events, their organization events, bring speakers. I think this would be a relatively inexpensive way, as opposed to, building a new building or anything else, that organizations could have an extra area where they could have their events, and they could rent it for one day, and then it would be closed at night and nobody would be allowed to sleep in it or anything. To speak a little bit about the funding initiatives that I kind of touched on earlier, I know we talked about how graduate students should have the opportunity to attend professional conferences, but we also want to expand this in a way to make sure that everyone on here has equal access to resources. So for example, there are some students who choose to stay on campus during spring break because they can't necessarily afford to go back home. And I think it's really important that these students have access to essentials and food over break to kind of offset the financial stress placed on them. So partnering with local grocery stores or restaurants to give them gift cards to make sure that they don't have any financial stress when it comes to eating and things like that during break would be fantastic. Lastly, to speak a bit on the wellness initiatives, right now we have some free STI testing on campus, but we only offer free HIV testing about 3 times a year, I think it would be great if we got a low-cost analyst on campus that could have like testing for other STIs for free or for very low cost for students.
Absolutely. So, how specifically will you represent the student body and make sure that their voices are heard if elected?
So right now, student government wants like students to come to them and to talk to us about their ideas, and that's great, but I think we need to flip that around a bit. I think that there is a responsibility on student government to be going to like 3 community chapter meetings throughout the weekend, to be attending multicultural club meetings, to just be going to various areas on campus and being like, hello, we are your student government representatives. We want to hear what it is that you want to see from us. It is wonderful right now that we are open to people who want to come to talk to us during our office hours or to reach out to senators about their ideas, but I think that it's important that student government takes more initiative to reach out to campus and to go to various areas and make sure that we are talking to everyone and that we know what everyone wants to see on campus.
Yeah, and just to speak a little bit more on that as well, I think that our ticket really embodies that idea, in that we have a diverse selection of candidates from different parts of campus, including ECS, JSOM, NSM, EPS. We actually have Tanush Tiwari, who is the president of Hackers UTD, and he's really passionate about reaching out to graduate and international students as an international student himself, as he feels that that is a very underrepresented group, especially within student government, but on this campus as a whole. He's been a huge advocate for student government reaching out and coming up with creative projects and creative implementations to better serve those students. Furthermore, we have other candidates from different parts of campus, from the biggest cultural associations like FSA to some smaller ones. So I think that one of our strengths is really that we truly have a diverse ticket that represents almost every part of campus. And that's something that we really believe in promoting within student government, and we feel that our ticket embodies as a whole.
Okay. In regards to the election, how do you plan on fostering student involvement in student government? In the past, voter turnout and engagement has been extremely low. In 2016, it was 7%, and last year it was 6.6%.
So I know I kind of touched on how right now student government waits for people to come to us, but we don't go to people as much as we should be going to. In the past week, Eric and I have been reaching out to a lot of organizations. People on our ticket have been talking to a variety of organizations on campus. For example, yesterday I had a phone conversation with the president of the Friendship Association of Chinese College Students. They are an organization focused on like graduate international Chinese students. And when I was talking to him, he was like, thank you so much for reaching out to me. Student government has never reached out to us in the past. Like, we want to know about this election. Like, please tell me more about it. So people on campus definitely want to engage. I just don't think that there is enough awareness right now of who is running, what the platforms are, when elections are happening. So I think that by reaching out to all sorts of organizations and just talking to them about the elections, making sure that we are raising awareness about when voting has happened would be a great way to start that.
Yeah, and to expand on that, I think you told me that he even offered to translate some of the materials on our website, which is really exciting to me. I think that sometimes as comments here at UTD, it's a very big school that sometimes feels very small. And that, I think, is really a testament to the fact that a lot of our organizations aren't reaching beyond some of the borders of the standard student groups, kind of like the first year freshmen, first time in college freshmen who might try and get involved with like Greek organizations. We really need to expand our horizons if we want to increase our voter turnout. And I think, again, that's one thing that we are trying to do as a ticket and that we embody with our diversity, specifically with international and graduate students.
Right. So in regards to the election, what would you say to voters about why they should vote for y'all?
I think that we have so many ideas that are fresh, but not only are they large scale and would be really beneficial to a lot of people on campus, but they're also feasible. We've talked quite a bit to the past 2 vice presidents, Alex Holcomb and Joey Campaign. They're both running on our ticket. We've talked to them a lot about the implementation of projects. And I believe that they've talked to us quite a bit about how we could go about implementing these projects. So not only do we have these ideas, but we also know how to implement them as soon as we get into office, which I think is really important to not only have great ideas, but to also have feasible ideas that can be implemented as soon as possible.
Yeah, and again, I think we have a lot of fresh ideas, but again, our ideas that affect a larger proportion of the student body, and they're sustainable projects that we have a vision for sustaining for a long time. One of the elements of sustainability is just the longevity of projects. We believe that projects should be around and should be affecting students for years and years to come. We don't want to implement projects that start up one year and might fizzle out in the next 2 or 3 years. We believe in the sustainability of projects so that the projects that we implement have the chance to promote the longevity of those projects to affect a large proportion of students over a longer time period.
What do you hope to improve about student government during your time in office?
I think that there are a lot of ways to streamline the internal operations of student government. For example, when I was appointed this September, I was a little unsure about what like the rules were when we had Senate meetings, when we had committee meetings, and I think that by taking new senators and just having like a 20-minute new member education when we talk to them about the rules, various connections on campus, how to go about student government would be awesome. Because right now for new senators, and I speak because I was one, a year ago, it's you're unsure about what's allowed, you're unsure about how to go about things, and I think that just having a short, like 15 minutes discussion with new senators about how to implement projects, like what is allowed, what the rules are, would be a really great way to streamline that process.
Yeah, and to extend on that even further, I think ultimately student government needs to be about the students. And when we say that, we don't just say that. I think that one of the most powerful things for me in student government was just seeing how projects impacted students and seeing like the ways that we could tangibly improve students' lives on campus. A lot of times I think when we get caught up in doing our job and kind of like getting the tasks done, we lose sight of the end goal of just making comets happier on campus and making them proud to be able to call themselves a comet. So again, with kind of improving our orientation processes, putting a face to departments, to student groups, and putting ourselves in front of them and actually meeting the people instead of just reaching out over email or whatnot, I think could really improve the culture within student government and bringing the focus back to the students.
Definitely. I know y'all mentioned earlier about some initiatives or policies that y'all are planning on working on, but are y'all planning on continuing any policies or initiatives that y'all have started this year?
Yeah, absolutely. So for example, right now the Student Affairs Committee is working on a variety of projects. I am working on a project that has to do with installing printers in the residence hall so that people, when it's 2 a.m. and students have to print out a paper, they don't have to walk all the way to the library. I think that a lot of these projects, because they are a little more large scale, probably cannot be implemented by the end of this year. So I think it's super important that we have communication with people who are currently in student government and working on these projects to make sure that we can carry them out into the next year and that they don't fall through the cracks like they have in the past.
Yeah, and one of the projects that fell under our vision for increased community support was more flexible dining hours, whether that be longer hours in the dining hall or getting more either late night options or just more flexible dining options on campus. We already have a fairly wide selection of really great options on campus for dining, but we felt that one of the complaints that we received from students was just that in seasons like final seasons or when unexpected things happen in students' lives, it's sometimes hard to make dining accommodations when our dining services are somewhat limited. Even off campus, a lot of the restaurants and dining options off campus are fairly limited too as far as late night options. And so just accommodating for students' interests in that way. I know a lot of us kind of want to push for 24-hour dining because I think there's something really fun and special about going to like a diner at 1 a.m. with your friends, but it's also a community outreach kind of initiative in that we need to accommodate for students who need those options.
Absolutely. So on a closing note, what would you say to students who are still undecided on who they should vote for?
I think that we have an incredibly diverse ticket that has connections in a variety of areas on campus. We also have a ticket with a good amount of experience. We have the past vice presidents in our ticket with us, and we have so much passion and energy about UT Dallas and so many fresh project ideas that I don't think have ever really been on the table for UT Dallas before, and we would love to get these done for the UT Dallas student body.
Yeah, and I think you'll, again, to kind of, to talk on the whole idea of catalyzing a reaction, I think that one thing that you'll see with this ticket is that all of us really want to see SG come out the other side completely different. there are a lot of new things that we want to implement, and I think that we have the prowess and the experience to understand what needs to go into these implementations, and that we'll get working on these projects right when we get into office, and that's one advantage I think our ticket has over the other ticket.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank
Thank you for
all.
having us.
Yes.